This episode of the Akzo Powdcast is brought to you by Gema. Whether you're the shop manager, system engineer, or powder coater, once you decide to make Gema an integral part of your shop, you'll understand how simple it is to be so productive. For a demonstration, call 877-437-6771. Once again, that's 877-437-6771. And be sure to mention, Ask Joe sent me. When you want to know that everything is covered, complete it with Gema.
Hello, all you powder coating fans, and welcome to episode number 21 of the Ask Joe Powder Powdcast. Thanks for taking time to join us. We really appreciate your support. I'm your host
And birthday boy,
Joe Powder, aka Kevin Biller, and with me is my esteemed colleague, sidekick, and the powder coating industry's cool hand Luke, Nathan. He's Powder Coating Research Group's formulator dude.
Hey, before we get it rolling, I wanted to give a special shout out to our host and birthday boy, Joe Powder, a.k.a. Kevo, a.k.a. Mr. B, powder coating dude, whatever you know him by. Those of you who don't know his background, he's been, involved in the powder coating industry since the 1970s.
Jimmy Carter was president, my friends.
Yeah, but you've been, started out formulating, you worked in manufacturing, wrote a book, write articles, and generally, teaching new people about powder coating technology, and you've just always been an advocate for the technology. So I just wanted to say happy birthday and wish you a good one. You should drink a whole bunch of beer after this.
Sounds great. Thanks. I really appreciate that.
happy birthday, Kevo.
Hey, thanks, you guys.
Should we get sued by Warner Brothers? Happy birthday to you.
Oh, shucks.
All right, well, we're broadcasting from the Powder Coating Research Group studios in Columbus, Ohio. And so, the purpose of the Ask Joe Powder podcast is to bring news and technical know-how to the global powder coating community. What do you have to say?
Well, before we get rolling, I'd like to give a shout out to Key Finishes and my entrepreneurial friends, Robert Johnson, Todd Powers, and Jim McCurdy. These are guys I've known in the industry since way back when, and I'd say about 7 years ago, plus or minus, they recognized a need in the industry that was kind of being somewhat unmet, and they built their own company from the ground up. They are specialists in powder bonding technology, and basically they take powder coating materials, bases in these cases, from powder manufacturers, and they incorporate special effect pigments like aluminum or aluminium, depending where you're coming from, pearlescence micas, and other types of special effect flakes, and they fix them onto your powder particles, which make them much more usable in your application systems. The key here is that you can actually collect and reclaim them and still get the same appearance. So hats off to my friends. You guys have done a great job, and we wish the best for you in 2021 for you and your business. Okay, let's have some news in our Guess What segment.
Guess what?
All right, from PCI Magazine, they report Akzo Nobel is providing powder coatings for water pipeline in China. There's a major infrastructure project in Guangdong province. Akzo Nobel's Resicoat R2 coatings have been approved for basically a massive water resource allocation project. Their coating is designed specifically for the drinking water industry, so not only is it safe chemically, it also has high density, high hardness, good abrasion resistance, corrosion resistance, adhesion, all of those sort of properties that help to prolong the life cycle of a pipeline. Our second article is from PPCJ, another Akzo Nobel piece of news. They opened a new R&D lab dedicated to low-cure powder coatings. This is at their site in Como, Italy. We've spent a lot of time on this podcast talking about low-temperature cure, and it seems to be the focus of most of the big R&D efforts from the bigger powder coating companies right now. But this is interesting. They have the new R&D facility is going to focus on low cure powder for use on heat sensitive substrates such as MDF, plywood, thermoplastics, and composites. The Como site is Akzo Nobel's biggest plant in Europe for producing powder coatings. So they're increasing the capacity as well as adding this R&D lab. The center will focus on developing a variety of different low-cure solutions, though. That includes low-bake, UV, and ultra-low-bake powder coating technologies.
Yeah, one thing about, you mentioned that they're in Como, Italy, and I've been fortunate enough in my travels to stop in Como a few times, most recently in 2019, before all this COVID nonsense. And I tell you what, my powder coating friends, that is one of the most beautiful places in the world. It's nestled in the foothills of the Alps. I think they're the Dolomites there. Beautiful lake, right at the base of the Alps. And, it's kind of funny. Had dinner there and people said, hey, you might want to look out because George Clooney hangs out there. Apparently he's got a villa there. But, Como's a gorgeous place. But hats off to Akzo. It's nice to see people promoting new technology in powder.
Okay, and here's one from PPCJ. Clariant is expanding a pigments laboratory for the African market. Clariant Pigments is expanding their new state-of-the-art pigments laboratory near Johannesburg in South Africa. The new facility is going to service the Middle East and Africa paints and coatings market.
The cool thing about this, Nate, we've got some friends that are developing, industrial products in Kenya. And one of the biggest problems they have in the African continent is lack of resources. In the coatings industry, they're still in its its infancy, technically and certainly volume-wise. So, this is really, I think, encouraging to see a major chemical producer, in this case for pigments, which are integral to, powder and any kind of coatings technology. They made an investment in South Africa. I know it's not next door to Kenya, but they'll be able to serve the African market with technology and understandings of other regions and everything. And I think that's a wonderful development. It's good to see. Okay, well, it's time now for our Q&A portion of our podcast.
Do you have a question? Ask Joe Powder. Well, you can ask him. Ask Joe Powder. He has the answer that'll advance your powder coating. It's the Ask Joe Powder Powdcast.
Well, speaking of our friends in Kenya, this question here comes from Tony Chamberlain, Senior Product Designer for Burn Manufacturing, which is the aforementioned coatings shop there in Africa. Tony says, Joe, I wonder if you might have some time for an email question. We're working out a game plan for powder coating for LPG stove. As part of this, we're looking at what changes will be needed to our current line to apply it correctly. Specifically, what pretreatment would you recommend? I think we know that an iron phosphate step will likely be needed. Are there unique steps for different powders for instance, polyester, epoxy, polyurethane, PTFE, etc., these parts will be laser cut CRCA steel. These different coatings use the same pretreatment process. As you might guess, to keep costs down, we need to find a moderate pretreatment approach that's not the full 21-step gold standard process that I've heard about. Hopefully this is not too much to address in an email. Maybe you could address it on the podcast.
Okay. Hey, Tony, thanks for the question, and I'm always happy to help you guys. You're doing such a great job for improving the lives of many people. So let's kind of break it down. For cold rolled steel, as you mentioned, the CRCA steel, what you're going to want to have is a decent cleaner followed by an iron phosphate pretreatment. The cleaning step can either be something pretty basic like a solvent wipe. You might want to use acetone, or maybe even aqueous detergent solution, maybe hot detergent solution, maybe scrubbing it, manually. Or it could be chemical in nature. In this case, it would be an alkaline cleaner from a chemical supplier. And what I would recommend with that type of step in your cleaning pretreatment system, I would recommend a manual spray wand, with a fair, medium or moderate degree of pressure. The reason for this, for the cleaning step, is you need very clean metal for the subsequent stage, the phosphating, to work. So clean the metal either with solvent or detergent, or alkaline cleaner. And then if you're using something aqueous like the detergent or the alkaline cleaner, you would need a rinse. If you're doing a job just with solvent wiping, you obviously are not going to need a water rinse. You're just going to need clean rags so you don't get yourself in trouble with contaminating the surface. Next, I would follow that process with a well-controlled iron phosphate, which would then be followed by a drying process, which could be compressed air, an oven, hot air, whatever. You have to kind of look at what resources you have available. Now, you mentioned laser cut edges, and Tony, these can be trouble, as they're almost impossible to get paint to adhere to. There's two different solutions. So people either use an inert gas laser setup, so you minimize the oxidation of that laser cut edge. If you don't go this route, then you're stuck with either physically abrading the laser cut edge, and this would be with a grinding wheel or something, or in some cases you can use a very strong organic acid etch, which difficult to handle. It's not so good for worker exposure. So anyway, keep all these things in mind. You mentioned different coatings, and would they call for different pretreatment? That's a good question. As far as chemistries go, epoxies or epoxy-containing powder coatings like epoxy polyester, aka hybrids, these have the best potential to get adhesion to steel that's just clean and not phosphated. So yes, it does make a difference. If you're going with a polyester or polyurethane, I would highly recommend that you do the phosphating step. Another thing you may want to consider, if you don't do the phosphating step, regardless of what type of powder, you may want to roughen the surface either with an abrading wire wheel or maybe a media blast. So that's kind of what I see your options for this LPG stove that you guys are developing. So if you have any further questions, get back to me. If you'd like to set up a call, be very happy to. Best regards, Joe. Okay, guys, it's time for a word from our sponsors.
Gama's Optiflex Pro manual gun uses Power Boost technology, which gives you the industry's highest charging power at 110,000 volts and 110 microamps, allowing for faster and more efficient powder coating. We're handing you more power, more quality, and more control. For a demonstration, call 877-437-6771. Once again, that's 877-437-6771. And be sure to mention, Ask Joe sent me. When you want to know that everything is covered, complete it with Gama.
The Powder Coating Research Group is a proud sponsor of the Ask Joe Powder Podcast. PCR is the only independent laboratory dedicated to powder coating technology. We do everything from raw material evaluation, formulating the next generation of coatings, new product development, testing, troubleshooting, training, and consulting. To find out more, visit our website at powdercoatingresearch.com, or you can email Kevin Biller at kevinbiller@yahoo.com. Thanks for listening to the Ask Joe Powder Podcast. And we're back. Okay, and Tony responded to that initial answer, and here's his follow-up question. Tony says, Joe, this is great. Thanks again for your input. There was one smaller subject that I didn't have time to bring up. In addition to powder coating, we have also been looking into pre-coated galvalume sheet. What I wanted to ask was your general impression of pre-coated sheets versus powder coating. Of course, there are many types of pre-coat, so this might be a large subject. In general, from what I've seen, pre-coat tends to be significantly thinner and not as durable. We have one polyurethane pre-coat that was suggested by a supplier, but the hardness rating was an F, which seemed quite low compared to powder coatings. What do you think?
You know, it's an excellent question, Tony, and it really looks like you're covering your bases as far as options for coatings for this new appliance that you guys are developing. Pre-coat metal is what they typically call the process is coil coating. Mm-hmm. So the coils of metal, steel, or in some cases aluminum, are coated and then rolled back up into a coil and then delivered to the fabrication shop to be processed. You mentioned that this stuff seems pretty thin. Yes, it will be. And the hardness rating is an F pencil, which is low, and yes, it is. Reason for that is when people use pre-coated metal, it requires post-forming. So you get your coated metal, and then you have to go through a number of processes to make your item. So anyway, to be flexible, a lot of times things have to be on the softer side.
Yeah, and in a lot of cases, if something's flexible, it's not hard, and if it's hard, it's not flexible. Those tend to be kind of counter to one another.
They're trade-offs. It's a matter of physics. Yeah. So, yeah, excellent point. Here's the way I would look at it, Tony. Number one question. Does the coating meet your requirements for the intended use? And for this, it's a cook stove cabinet or base, and is it going to have the heat resistance? Does it have the abrasion resistance for multiple cleaning? Does it have good adhesion? Does it have good edge? Well, it won't have good edge coverage. Anyway, the number one question is, does the coating meet your requirements? Because if it doesn't, all bets are off. You move on to powder coating. The next question, and I was kind of alluding to this, but will the coated sheet, the pre-coated metal, withstand your fabrication processes? And think about it. You get the steel delivered in sheets or in a coil. Will it withstand shearing, punching, bending, drawing, etc. for your parts without scratching, marring, cracking, breaking? So that's a big question. If it does not, you may have to modify your fabrication process, which means you may have to change your dies to a different type of die. You may have to have softer presses and brakes and things like that to accommodate the coating. Otherwise, you'll damage it. So, okay. One other item, and just think about it. You get a coated sheet of metal, you cut it, you punch it, maybe drill some holes in it, whatever. You do your fabrication bending. You're going to have cut edges. So the question then is, are these cut edges going to affect the performance of your unit when it's in the field? That's going to be a site for corrosion. It could be a site for loss of adhesion. So the question remains, like, how would you deal with that? Would you have a post coating or sealing process that you would have to incorporate to mitigate that issue? So, kind of in summary, pre-coated metal is a good idea when it works, and it is very commonly used for things like building facades, siding components, metal cabinetry, refrigerator doors, and many more end uses. So it does work under the right conditions for certain end uses. But anyway, let me know if you have any other thoughts and ideas. Be happy to help you. Best regards, Joe. Okay, before we wrap up, we're going to fill you in on some upcoming events.
Hey friends, where are we going?
To an upcoming event.
Okay, and the list is about the same as last time. The Powder Coating Week, that's the Powder Coating Institute's series of related powder coating events that takes place in Orlando. That's happening in April. The Paint and Coatings Show in Barcelona, Spain, that's the 1st and 2nd of June, 2021. The Eastern Coatings Show in Atlantic City, New Jersey, that's the 9th through 11th of June, 2021. The European Coatings Show in Nuremberg, Germany, is September 14th through 16th of 2021. I wanted to mention I think we brought up the American Coatings Show on the last episode and confirmed that that's happening in 2022 in April. And then the Powder Coating Summit right here in Columbus, Ohio, that's the 22nd and 23rd of September 2021. And then the 28th through 30th of September is Abrafati. That's the Brazilian International Coating Show.
One other thing to mention, you mentioned the Powder Coating Summit, the 22nd and 23rd of September. The 2 days before that, which would be the 20th and 21st, we're going to have a Powder Coating Kitchen Formulators course. And this will be the debut of our Powder Coating Kitchen 2.0. So it's going to be advanced formulating techniques, and we're really looking forward to teaching the industry some more sophisticated formulation techniques. So we'll have more information in upcoming.
Yeah, we'll
podcasts.
talk more about the kitchen because I think we'll probably want to be scheduling another version of the intro or the 1.0 version of the course, and then this 2.0 one for people that might be already familiar with what the basic things that go into a powder coating and how to put them together.
Yeah. So we'll have more for that next podcast. Okay. Before we finish up, just to let you know, you can catch the Ask Joe Powder Q&A column in print and on the websites of Powder Coated Tough Magazine, which is the flagship of the Powder Coating Institute, PPCJ, which is Polymers, Paint and Color Journal. It's on their website and also in their print edition of their magazine. You can also find it in PCI Magazine, Paint and Coatings Industry, on their website under their Finishing Flash tab. All
right, you can find us online at askjoepowder.com. You can subscribe to the podcast on any of the normal platforms that you listen to your podcasts. You can find us on Twitter. It's AKA Joe Powder. We have a YouTube channel that doesn't have much on it, but we might start putting the podcasts on there eventually, or we might make some instructional videos. So subscribe and keep an eye out for new content on there. If you want to send in a question, the email address is askjoepowder@yahoo.com, or you can call and leave us a message at country code 1-478-2-ASK-JOE. That's 1-478-227-5563. This has been a production of the Powder Coating Research Group. And thanks to Nick over there on the recording equipment and the original music. Be sure to drink your Ovaltine? What? A crummy commercial?
And keep your powder dry, my friends.
Thank you for listening to the Ask Joe Powder Powdcast. This episode was brought to you by Gema. Gema powder coating systems offer you greater efficiencies while producing high-quality results. We provide the very best in powder delivery, application technology, and connectivity for smarter factory automation. With Gema, you get maximum performance and repeatability whether you are on the shop floor or away from it. For a demonstration, call 877-437-6771. Once again, that's 877-437-6771. And be sure to mention, Ask Joe sent me. When you want to know that everything is covered, complete it with Gema.
I'm your host, Joe Powder, a.k.a.
the guy who didn't turn his phone on.
Bases in these cases, bases in these cases, bases in these cases, bases in these cases, bases in these cases,